It's championship week. Let's get those starting lineups fixed. Starting off tier 1, CMC Tyreek Hill. Now, the Miami Dolphins are supposed to be worse this week than we have seen all season. You're looking at Miami with an implied team total of 21.5 points going up against one of the best defenses in the NFL that just made the Niners look like a below average team. Am I worried? No, it's Tyreek Hill. You still start Tyreek. You probably have no Jalen Waddle in this game, so Tyreek should see a ridiculous amount of target volume, but I do want to just at least talk about the fact that it should be a tougher matchup for him. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we are going to be going with CeeDee Lamb, who's supposed to be playing in the second highest scoring offense in the NFL this week. 29.5 points with their implied team total. Great matchup going up against the Detroit Lions. If you look at his underdog pick'em, currently they have a CeeDee Lamb sitting at 102.5 total yards. So you're going to make a strong argument that CeeDee Lamb should be ahead of Tyreek. Now, Kyren Williams will be our next guy. Kyren has been on fire. I mean, there's nothing to talk about. He is a true bell cow back. I mean, we've had him as the RB2 in our rankings for 3 straight weeks. St. Brown will be our next guy. Amon-Ra St. Brown in that very high scoring contest going up against Dallas. Right now, you have the Cowboys as about 5.5 point favorites. I mean, if you are looking at Amon-Ra St. Brown, they have him only at 77.5 receiving yards. I'd potentially, honestly, take Amon-Ra to have more than 77.5 total, given the fact they should be throwing the ball aggressively in this game. We'll go A.J. Brown at 6. A.J. going up against Arizona. You have an implied team total of 29.5 points for the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to go Jahmyr Gibbs at 7. Yes, you are noticing a trend here. The game that has the highest over-under of the week, the Dallas-Detroit game, I want as many options in as possible. If you are looking at this Detroit Lions offense, they should most likely be playing from behind. They should most likely be looking to throw the ball aggressively in the second half, which should bode well for Jahmyr Gibbs. I would not mind going through and taking Jahmyr Gibbs to have more than 77.5 total yards on Underdog this week. Rachaad White will be our next guy. Very safe pick, 3-down workhorse. That has the receiving workload. Jonathan Taylor in here at 9. Now, I understand Taylor did disappoint this past week. I don't know. Give me another week healthy of JT. He has a 23.5 point implied team total right now. So the Colts should be fine going up against the Raiders. Now, jumping down to our next tier, we are going to go James Cook. So James Cook was disappointing this past week, but it's a good matchup where you have a 27 point implied team total going up against the Pats. And while James Cook was disappointing, at the same time, the man had like 20 carries. So I'm still going to go right back to the well. We're going to go Deebo Samuel at 11. Deebo's supposed to be playing in the highest scoring offense in the NFL this week with the Niners going up against San Francisco. They have an implied team total of 31.5 points. With that being said, obviously they were disappointing this past week, but it's the best matchup you could ask for. Justin Jefferson will be our next guy. They're making a change at quarterback for Minnesota. I have no idea how this guy's going to be. What I do know is Vegas is telling us they should score about 24.5 points. So honestly, should be an average to above average offense in the NFL this week. Jefferson, one of the most talented guys. We're taking him. We'll go Alvin Kamara at 13. Safe option in a full PPR format. Non-PPR league and move him lower. We'll go Travis Etienne at 14. I understand Etienne is nuts to rank here. Etienne has been dog water. I understand that if you have Travis Etienne, you're probably not even in your fantasy football championship. But he's going up against Carolina. This is about the best matchup you could have for your running back. You have a 22.5 point implied team total for the Jacksonville Jaguars here. So it projects out to be a much better spot than what we've had. And they currently have Travis Etienne at 84.5 total yards on Underdog, which is higher than what they have with someone like Jahmyr Gibbs, who we have a tier above. Michael Pittman will be our next guy. Super safe option. I'm assuming Pittman plays this week. Brandon Ayuk, kind of same thing. With Ayuk, great matchup going up against Washington. Then we're going to go Mike Evans at 17. And then the last spot in this tier, we are going to go Tony Pollard. Dowdle is out for this game. Pollard is supposed to be playing in the second best offense in the NFL this week. And while the volume has gone down, now they really have no other choice but to go ahead and use him as that 3-down player. If you are looking at the Underdog pick'em that you currently have for Tony Pollard, they currently have him at even odds to score a touchdown and 78.5 total yards as well. So right there in line with someone like Jahmyr Gibbs, who we have ranked ahead of him. So I think based off this recent injury news, you do have Pollard as a must-start guy at this point. And of course, in this game, I'm going to be looking at the Detroit guys with those pick'ems. Gibbs, 77.5 total yards is my favorite pick'em. But if you use code FLOCK on Underdog with the link in the description or the comment section, you're also going to get a 100% deposit match plus our dynasty rankings and tiers. And on top of that, a Dak Prescott special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard for the Sunday night game as well. But moving now to our next tier, we're going to be going with Puka here at 19. Puka coming off an absolute blow-up game. I think it's an easy spot to go forward and rank him as the wide receiver 1 for the Rams. Maybe you assume that the overall passing volume comes down just a bit with them playing the Giants. Bijan Robinson will be our next guy at 20 with Bijan. Just projects out to be a very bad Falcons offense. They currently have an implied team total of 17.5 points. Rashee Rice will be our next guy at 21. I'm still going to assume that Patrick Mahomes is a good quarterback, even though I know a lot of people on the internet want to say differently. Saquon Barkley will be our next guy. Barkley has the 3-down workload. I mean, it was a little bit of a scare 2 weeks ago when it looked like that may be leaving, but no, looks like it is safe. And at the same time, this is going to be someone that should project out to be in a better offense this week than what we've seen in the past. We're going to go DJ Moore at 23 and Stephon Diggs at 24. So with Diggs, I believe we've had him ranked too high for about 5 weeks straight now. And we've just been chalking up his disappointing weeks to random variants. Wide receivers will go up, wide receivers will go down. I honestly think that that was a mistake on my part. I think we did not pay enough attention to the offensive coordinator change in Buffalo and how that may have impacted the target distribution and what we are seeing with this offense. This offense isn't necessarily just funneling everything through Stephon Diggs. They are deciding to spread the ball out a little bit more. So I don't know. I think that we probably have to take our L on ranking Stephon Diggs too high over the past month. And Diggs is someone that has to come down in these rankings closer to 24 than being ranked that elite receiver. Now, Jamar Chase will be our next guy here. With Chase, obviously, it's difficult to know if he will be good to go. He has an 18.5 point implied team total, which is just so much lower than what you have with someone like Minnesota, which is why you'll see Jefferson so much higher in these rankings. And then also, he's not fully healthy. It's not the best matchup in the world going up against KC. We'll go Nico Collins at 26. While Collins has been disappointing, CJ Stroud has been injured. Nico Collins himself was injured. We saw at the beginning of the year with a healthy CJ Stroud, with a healthy Nico Collins, that Nico Collins is going to be phenomenal. At the same time, you have no Tank Dell in this offense, so it's an easy spot to assume that Collins will get flooded with targets. And yeah, I'm willing to start him. We're going to go David Montgomery here. With Montgomery is in the highest scoring game in the NFL this week, but at the same time, I'm assuming that the Cowboys win this game. They're 5.5 point favorites. I assume Detroit looks to throw the ball in the second half, so it may be a little bit of a better spot for us to assume that Gibbs is the guy that we want, as it's been over the past month. We'll have Mostert here at 28. I understand this is a very low ranking for Raheem Mostert compared to what we've typically had. But at the same time, we've seen the Miami Dolphins have implied team totals of 28, 29, 30 points in weeks past, being favored by a touchdown to 10 points. And yeah, under those circumstances, Raheem Mostert, Devon Etienne, in my mind, are must-start players. However, as you go up against the Baltimore Ravens, and it's a much tougher matchup where instead you're sitting with that implied team total of 21.5 points, so you project that to be just an average offense, it'll be much tougher to go out there and rank you as a must-start player. Cooper Kupp will be our next guy at 29. I mean, Kupp looks to be fine. I know he's dropping the ball. I know he's not as good as he once was. I'm still fine starting Cooper Kupp, to be honest. DeAndre Swift has a great matchup going up against Arizona. 29.5 point implied team total. The difference between someone like DeAndre Swift and Tony Pollard is not going to have to deal with Dak Prescott vulturing the rushing touchdowns at the goal line, as you will with Jalen Hurts in Philly. So the offenses project out to be similar. It's obviously a great matchup for Swift. It's just harder to assume that he has the same touchdown upside. We'll go Devontae Adams at 31. It's going to be for a full BBR format, but if you had Adams and you started him last week, probably not in the championship based off what he did to you. And we'll go Ezekiel Elliott at 32. If you're looking at Zeke, a 13.5 point implied team total. Should be a horrendous offense going up against Buffalo. It's not an easy matchup. We took Ezekiel Elliott to have fewer than 100 total yards on Underdog last week, and that hit for us, which I am very thankful for. I may be considering Ezekiel Elliott to have more than 79.5 total yards on Underdog this week, We played the lower than 100 last week. We may be playing the more than 79.5 total this week because Ramondre is out and Zeke is still getting absolutely everything. Now, our next year is going to be led off with a bunch of volatile receivers. We're going to have Olave, Smith, Metcalf, Higgins. All these players are guys with high ceilings with lower floors. The number one player that I need to be pointing out here will be T. Higgins, and that is still a possibility that you have no Jamar Chase in this game. And if you were to have no Jamar Chase, then at that point, I want to be on record saying that T. Higgins will be a must-start guy, and T. Higgins will be jumping up around the Stephon Diggs range in these rankings. But that's if you have no Jamar Chase. If Chase plays, this is where you're going to have T. Higgins in these rankings. We'll go with Eckler, Mixon, Jacobs as two running backs in horrendous offenses, and then a running back that's in a bad offense but dealing with an injury, and we don't know if he's going to play. So Josh Jacobs hasn't played over the past 2 weeks. With Jacobs, this is a running back that hasn't been at practice. So will be something that we need to continue to monitor. If Jacobs going to go, I wouldn't be surprised if they're just a little bit hesitant to give him a full workload and maybe mix in Zamir White until he is fully healthy. Now, someone that I wasn't excited to rely on this past week was Aaron Jones. Wanted to see him fully healthy, wanted to see him with that full workload. Well, he got it. Aaron Jones went out last week at about 20 total carries. Going up against Minnesota, I mean, it should be a fine spot. We know Aaron Jones will be a running back that gets targeted out of the backfield as well. Will be interesting to see if the receivers here are healthy and if they really have to lean on Jones. Zay Flowers will be our next guy at 39. Zay Flowers has been banged up. We're not exactly sure if he's going to play. Right now, he's an underdog. Pick him out at 58.5 total yards. So it seems like they are projecting him to be good to go this week. This will be an injury that we need to continue to monitor. And I don't know. I mean, I'm fine playing Flowers considering that you have no Mark Andrews here. So you have plenty of volume. Now, our next guy will be Devon Etienne. With Etienne, very tough matchup going up against Baltimore. Doesn't look like he's been fully healthy over the past 2 weeks. Maybe it's going to be a little bit of a better spot this week now that it is another week to recover. But going back to what we're talking about with Raheem Mostert, it's much tougher to be excited about these Miami Dolphins just when you have the offense projecting out to be an average offense in the NFL, whereas we're used to seeing the projections and we are used to seeing them at the very top. Now, our next guy will be Derrik Henry. Derrik Henry, you have an implied team total of 19 points. Derrik Henry and the Tennessee Titans are dogs in this game. And what we have seen time in and time out is if the Titans win the game, if the Titans are competitive, Derrik Henry will be an exciting guy, someone that you want in your lineup. However, if that's not the case, if Derrik Henry instead is a running back that is trailing, then you want nothing to do with him. Very much game script dependent, very iffy from a week-to-week perspective. Then we'll be going Kenneth Walker, Devin Singletary, 42-43. Singletary did allow a few other running backs to get involved this past week, but honestly, it wasn't really that close to football game with no CJ Stroud. I'm still projecting out Devin Singletary to be the starting running back, the 3-down guy here. Should be an easier spot as well if you have CJ Stroud coming in and making this a better offense in general. So you have much more willing to go out there and make that bet on Singletary now. And then we're going to go Calvin Ridley at 44. With Ridley, this is a ranking under the assumption that Lawrence will be playing. You have that implied team total about 22.5 points. And like we said, when you have the Christian Kirk injury, Calvin Ridley does look like someone that you can now rely upon just because the target volume is going to be a little bit more guaranteed. Now, jumping into our next tier, we're going to be going with Clyde Edwards-Helaire under the assumption that you have no Isaiah Pacheco. It's a fine spot going up against Cincinnati. While I completely understand that you are disappointed with what we've had so far when it comes to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. There's still 26-point totals here. So I don't know. They're still supposed to be a good offense. I'm not necessarily too worried. Courtland Sutton, Javante Williams will be our next two guys. Very interesting to see what we are going to be looking at here with no Russ. A lot of times we've had, I don't know, I mean, teams go out and have massive blow-up games immediately after moving on from a starting quarterback or a head coach. I think you may see that bump here. They are 3.5-point favorites. James Conner will be our next guy. Very tough matchup for Connor. We'll go DeAndre Hopkins at 49. Hopkins, a Godwin, maybe you can make an argument they should be above this. Edwards, 51. Non-PPR format. Edwards should be a lot higher than this. These rankings are going to be for a full PPR league where Gus Edwards just simply doesn't really have any receiving upside in particular. And then we'll go Chuba Hubbard at 52. If you are looking at Chuba Hubbard, this is a running back that you can say is an exciting player when it comes to his workload. But the issue is going to be you have a 15.5 point implied team total. This projects out to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL. So if it projects out to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL, I probably don't want too many of your players. Now, our next year will be led off with Jaden Reed. With Reed, he is limited in practice. We'll want to continue to monitor this rankings under the assumption, obviously, that not only he plays, but also Christian Watson misses, who Christian Watson has not been at practice. Then we'll go Tyler Lockett, Ty Chandler. I've had a lot of people asking about Chandler this week. I'd rather not play Chandler, to be honest with you. Terry McLaurin, Jordan Addison, George Pickens. The Pickens ranking is a statement ranking. I understand we have him in the bottom tier. I understand how good he was this past week. Well, if you had George Pickens in an underdog tournament, bravo. I am extremely happy for you. I'm hoping you advanced. I'm hoping that you're going to be able to crush it this next week in the final round. However, if you are looking at what you had, it's a running back that all that production came off of pretty much 2 big plays. It's not like he is someone that's all of a sudden commanding a crazy amount of volume and is just a completely different player than he was previously. So I'm not going to sit here and act like all of a sudden we need to be ranking George Pickens as a must-start guy. That's just not the case. And then we're going to go Khalil Herbert, Brian Robinson. With Khalil, he will be higher than this if D'Onta Foreman were not to play, but I'm going to assume that we have D'Onta Foreman back in. And then with Brian Robinson, he's been limited in practice. I don't necessarily know if he is going to be good to go, but it's just going to be a tough spot knowing he's going up against the Niners. So even if he is good to go, I'd probably rather not start him. I don't know. I just don't want to play any running backs and bad offenses going up against the 49ers. But I think that's it for these rankings. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button. A couple of housekeeping things. One, if you want that Dak Prescott special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard, you can find that in the comment section in the description. Promo code FLOCK, get a 100% deposit match on Underdog, plus our Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings and tiers. My favorite pick'em to pair that up with will be Ezekiel Elliott for more than 80.5 total yards. Second thing is probably the last video we upload on this channel for this season. So if you want more of us, you can find that on the Dynasty Football Flock YouTube channel. We'll be posting there throughout the entire offseason. And lastly, we are looking to have a Flock Fantasy meetup. We do this every single year. I really hope that you can make it. This is going to be in Austin, Texas, January 13th, which is a Saturday at Zilker Park. Really relaxing. I doubt there'll be too many people there. Just a group of people hanging out, talking football. We will be at Zilker Park, so just come through. I'll give you the exact time. I'll post it on Twitter, post it on Instagram, everything. We'll figure it out. Of course, completely free. Just want to meet as many of y'all as we possibly can and have a lot of fun with that. But thank you again. Really do appreciate y'all. Really hope that you have a great day and really hope that you crush in your championship matchup this weekend.